Getting ready to chop up some celery. I have some mixed vegetables, onions. I have some diced tomatoes and potatoes and some spices and broth and better than bouillon. And somebody is letting me use their plug-in on their porch at a storage unit place where I keep my stuff. It's really important when you're canning that you use a safe, tested recipe. There are a lot of people that are rebel canners out there, and they vary, some a tad bit and some a lot. I don't have the recipe sitting here in front of me. It's somewhere in my car. I used a recipe that was out of one of the, I think it was Ball or something, one of the past ones. And I'm using, I have to still heat my stuff. I'm using squash, bell peppers, onions, what else? Celery, and mixed vegetables with carrots, lima beans, green beans, corn, and I'm going to use better than bouillon, and I'm using some potatoes and some of my spices and diced tomatoes. It's important that you never water bath these type of vegetables or meats. You can water bath tomatoes, but not these other kinds of vegetables. And I'm using a Nesco Digital Smart Canner, Red Rose Homestead. She officially tested them, and I feel that she's a very educated woman that used to work in that field, and I think it's a good thing to do. And so I'm going to be heating them and adding the broth and stuff. The problem is I don't have something to heat except for a little tiny mini rice cooker, and so it takes longer. But I'm measuring everything out right now. I'm adding better than bouillon. You can use any kind, whether it's chicken, beef, pork, or vegetable, or onion, garlic, or whatever. I had added some of my pressure canned meat that was almost done, and I'm using low sodium broth. And I don't usually add salt if I have stuff that already has salt in it, and I do have a little bit of salt in stuff. And let's see, I got my tomatoes. I'm gonna put some broth in. Oh yeah, I poured in some the broth off of the beef also. Besides a knife and a spoon and a dipper and stuff, you usually use one of these and one of this. And this little thing is for measuring the head space at the top that you need to leave, and for poking it to get the bubbles out. It's better that you use plastic and not metal because it can weaken your jars. I haven't finished adding all the broth and stuff, but you do this so you don't have bubbles in there of air. As a nomad, you know how important vinegar is to the nomad life. Well, it's also important in canning. And so because I am in a location where it's a high elevation, I use, and it has hard water also, so I put 2 quarts of water in my canner because the Nesco canner requires that you do that. It's different for each canner. And I take vinegar and put it on a paper towel, and I wipe the rim before you put the lid on. This is very important because if you have oil from your meat or food from your vegetable soup or whatever, if you have any of that on the rim, the lid is not going to seal. And anything that has meat in it has to be pressure canned for an hour and a half. And this is, the vegetables are in it also, but I just have a little bit of meat that's pre-cooked. One of the easiest things to cook, to pressure can, is chicken breast. Put it in the jar, don't get it so tight. And that's what I was going to say about this. With soup, it's important that the pressure and the heat can penetrate to the very core. And you can see in there that I don't have too much of the food. I have to have a lot of liquid in there. To kill botulism, you have to have a certain temperature. I can't remember what it is. Don't quote me. It might be above 244. I can't remember what it is, so don't quote me. But pressure cooking, regular pressure cooking in a pressure cooker does not reach that temperature. It has to be one made especially for a canner, and somebody has to have tested it, which Red Rose Homestead has tested it. And I feel confident in taking her word for it. So never water bath these items. This is really difficult when you're doing it on a back porch with no access to water except for what you have with you. And it's pretty difficult. And I don't also have everything I need. I have a mini rice cooker where I heat things or cook things, and it's not very big. Now, I'm new to using this Nesco. I think it's the third time maybe. So what's important is that you don't cover up that and you have your lids out of the way. And that's more so when you have wide mouth than when you have the regular mouth. And you can't water bath can in this with wide mouth quarts because they're a little bit higher. You have to have the water come up above the jars. And I think you can do it in the quart with regular mouth, and definitely with a pint. But remember, that's only for the foods like fruit and tomatoes, the things that have acid in them. But you can't water bath low acid or meats. People do it for years, but it's very unsafe. And they never come back and tell you that when they die, you don't ever hear about it. There's many people that have done it for years in other countries and everywhere, and they haven't died. But I would rather keep on the side of being safe. Because I couldn't heat my stuff up before I put it in the jars, it cooled down, I did what's called steam canning. And you can, I don't know if you can hear it. And so now I'm ready to turn on the canning. So I'm going to say stop. Okay, I can't bend over to the ground. Hope you can see this. And of course the thing flashes. Even it's actually not flashing, but that's what it does on camera. And so I'm going to do time. I've got a 15-pound pressure gauge on there. The other one that comes with it is if you're in lower altitude, but I require 15 pounds. And I'm going to say, let's see, time. I forgot, hold on. These are the instructions I'm following. It doesn't tell you recipes, it tells you how to operate the canner. Okay, and now I've got the time set, and I push the start button. And you must have this turned to the right way. When the timer goes off and it beeps, then you come over here at that point and you move it to exhaust. And then you have to wait till it's finished cooling down enough to open up. I'm gonna start over here. Okay, so I've already filled the jars and put the hot water in the canner with a glug of vinegar for hard water stains. And close and lock the lid, select high button, and then you press the time button and you set it to the amount of time, which for me it's 1.5 hours because there's meat and stuff in it. And then you set the limiting valve to exhaust, because it's like the old-fashioned canner. It's like the old-fashioned canner. What you do with that is you build up the pressure and you clean out all the air out of it. And so it has on the old canners, they have a petcock in it where steam comes out. And you have to wait till that steam is clear running for 10 minutes. So you wait till it gets a clear running, and then you time 10 minutes, and then you start the canner. Well, this is similar. You're getting all the pressure pulled out, so you have it on exhaust. The button is down because it's not building pressure. And it's going to tell me, because it's a smart canner, that when it can tell that the pressure's all ready, and it'll beep. And during that time, I will come and I will change this to be airtight. And that button will come up. It knows what pressure to get to because of this green knob on here. The black one is a lower altitude, and this is for high altitude. So if you have to do 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15, you use the green. Now we can't tell the difference between 11 and 15. When it's ready and the air has been coming out and it's running clear, it's going to tell me. And then I'm going to come and move that to airtight. And then it will start the countdown and do the hour and a half. The funny thing about these canners, they do something very confusing. On Instapot, E with a number means an error, but on here it means a countdown. It beeped and told me it's counting down. And so when it has 10 minutes of getting the pressure built up before I change that toggle switch, I have to wait for that 10 minutes to go, and it'll let me know, and then I'll change it, then I'll wait an hour and a half. So on this canner, E means exhaust. So it's doing the exhaust for 10 minutes. It's counting it down. I think it's on 7 right now. And then it'll let me know that the 10 minutes are up, and then I will switch that over and it'll start the countdown for an hour and a half. It's getting up to the right temperature inside right now. That doesn't mean that the jars, inside the jars, they're not up to temperature, but inside the canner is up to temperature. But during the hour and a half, it has been tested and proven that the temperature will climb up to the correct temperature, and it will stay long enough to make it safe enough. I have watched somebody that does this professional testing, and that's Rose Red Homestead, and she puts a little thing inside the jar, and then she can read it on her phone or computer or something and tell what the temperature is and how long it is. So to kill botulism, it has to reach a certain temperature for a certain amount of time on the inside of the jars. Okay, I have switched it to airtight. So this is chili con carne, and I will tell you part of the recipe because I can't see it while I'm on video. You have 3 cups of dried pinto beans that you soak them and rinse them and soak them. And then you have 3 pounds of ground beef. You have 1.5 cups of onion and 1 cup of sweet pepper, 2 quarts of crushed tomatoes, 5.5 cups of water, salt and pepper, and 3 to 6 tablespoons of chili powder. I have my onions and my sweet peppers, but I have a little bit too much, so I'll have to take this down to 1 cup and this down to 1 cup, and this down a little bit. Let me see, 1.5 cups, so it's 1 3/4. That's pretty close. I'll probably take a tiny bit out. It's still real warm, but I'm hungry. I'm gonna open it and eat it while the others are still cooling. Look at this sweet little face. It's good. Of course, how can it not be good? I could taste the saltiness of the Better Than Bouillon. There was salt in the Better Than Bouillon, and there was salt in the diced tomatoes, I think. I can't remember if I got low sodium or not, but I probably didn't. And I didn't add any salt. So there was mostly the broth in there, more than there wasn't too much of the vegetables, or it would have been too much to eat.